He's a stone-cold liar. I respect the presidency. I've tried to have an open hand with him, tried to work with him. You can't work with Donald Trump. You can only work for him. And I will not. I refuse to work for Donald Trump.
They don't have any faith in Gavin Newsom.
The most corrupt president in history.
Which is kind of funny because he wants to be president so bad.
That's what it
Wasn't exaggerating when I said that I received in the mail a Trump 2028 hat from one of his biggest supporters. These guys are not screwing around.
California is officially on fire. And no, not the Hollywood Hills this time. Roads are falling apart, wildfires are burning out of control, politicians are feeling the heat, and somewhere in Sacramento, Gavin Newsom is probably searching for how to stay relevant. Then here comes Joe Rogan. Yeah, the guy who can turn anything into a wild podcast moment, jumping right into the chaos like a caffeine-charged hero. So what did he really say? Did he lose it completely or drop some brutally honest truth? Buckle up, you're about to find out.
Told the Los Angeles Times Panera would not be exempt from the law. The spokesperson also did not claim the Bloomberg piece, which cited sources close to the matter that Newsom pushed for an exemption that applies to businesses that bake bread and sell it as a standalone item, calling the report absurd. So is it a fake story?
Or is it something that they
might have corrected
course quickly? Yeah.
Yeah. Roll up to the top. So where's the initial report? Let's find the initial report.
If you're enjoying this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It really helps more than you think. California is burning again. Not in a dramatic way. Not just another celebrity meltdown online. Real fires, real smoke. And right in the middle of it, Gavin Newsom is giving a press conference like it's some kind of wine tasting. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan, mic in hand, probably running on caffeine and pure logic, decides this is the perfect moment to jump in and share his take.
Because why would Bloomberg spread bullshit? Bloomberg is a financial paper, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's not something...
I don't think it would be...
You really can't do that if you're running a financial paper. It's not like the New York Times. The New York Times can say Israel bombed the hospital and 500 people are killed and put it on the front page, even if it's not true. And everybody just assumes it's true because it's the New York Times. But they can kind of get away with that.
Yeah.
And then they still exist.
And by way in, I mean he goes straight into roast mode. Locked in on the chaos, the politics, and how absurd it all looks. Picture California like a luxury sports car. It looks amazing, the media can't get enough of it, and tourists keep coming. But under the hood, it's a different story. Smoke everywhere, oil leaking, brakes barely working, and the engine practically begging for mercy.
That people still speculate that you're waiting in the wings to run for president. I know it's not going to happen. You know it's not going to happen. But what do you think is fueling that speculation?
I don't know. I don't think much anymore. And I'm so proud of the president and the incredible job he did. Didn't surprise me at all. And I know it didn't surprise you. I really believe that. I said to my friend the other day, I said, you know, on this age, and we can get into debates around fitness. Look, I'd rather have 80 years behind me than those 88 federal criminal counts.
Joe Rogan looks at this car and doesn't just shake his head. He grabs the keys, pulls the manual right out of Gavin's hands, and starts calling out every blown gasket and fried wire. The way he tells it, this isn't just bad management. It's a full-on comedy show starring potholes, wildfire smoke, and Governor Newsom trying hard to stay in the headlines.
It's, there must be something to it. And it's so hard with that guy because when you just look at the way he praised Biden, I would never run against him. A man of character. You know, like I'm old school. It's, God... It's like he's playing someone in a movie that's a crazy person. It's like that's how like a really good actor would play a complete crazy person who's insincere enough that smart people recognize it.
Rogan's way of doing things is typical of him. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't politely suggest that some policies might need to be changed. No. He breaks it all down like it's a giant, overcooked burrito packed with bureaucracy, political buzzwords, and a little bit of ego. Roads are cracked like ancient ruins, bridges swaying in the wind, and let's not forget a state budget that looks like it was written in invisible ink while someone binge-watched cat videos. Joe puts it all out there, shaking his head, probably mumbling about how people still call California a paradise while fire trucks sit stuck in traffic on the 405. And then there's Newsom. doing the political version of putting a bandage on a sinking ship, with burned eucalyptus in the air and that faint hint of avocado toast getting crushed under a collapsing housing market. But it's not all doom and gloom, because Joe Rogan has this way of turning disaster into comedy. He points out the absurdity of politicians trying to enforce rules in a place where half the people have solar panels, the other half act like they own flamethrowers, and everyone somehow loses Wi-Fi the second wildfire smoke fills the air 5 miles away.
You can't ruin a city and then go on to ruin a state and say, guys, that was just practice. Once I get it as a president, I'm going to fix it.
Wake up, America. Wake up. You will not have a country if he rigs this election. He's a lawless president. Wake up, America. Wake up to what's going on.
But he's such a great politician. I mean,
No,
he's
he's
so
not.
smooth.
I think he's terrible. And he's a good artist.
Well, I think it's pretty sick and pathetic. Everything you know about Donald Trump's America, and that was top down, you know that for a fact. Everything you know about the authoritarian tendencies of the President of the United States.
He compares meetings in Sacramento to someone trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded in the middle of a hurricane while juggling flaming torches. And somehow, it lands. You laugh, but at the same time you're thinking, maybe someone should call a firefighter who actually understands numbers. Then there's the housing crisis. Rogan doesn't tiptoe around it. He dives straight in like a shark sensing chaos. Rents shooting through the roof, people living in tents while mansions sit empty, and politicians promising fixes while cruising in Teslas on autopilot, dodging responsibility as easily as traffic. Joe tears into it, layering sarcasm so sharp it could cut through California's coastline. He doesn't soften the numbers, because numbers don't lie, even if politicians do. California, he says, is like a Silicon Valley startup that burned all its early funding on kombucha and yoga retreats, while the servers overheat and investors quietly head for the exit. He jokes about tax laws that read like hieroglyphics and small businesses paying more in permits than a Hollywood movie spends on catering. And somehow, everyone's still expected to applaud because someone built an app that delivers kale smoothies faster than you can even say budget deficit.
Things that he says when he gets confronted with we're the highest this and the highest that. Like, everybody's leaving.
You will have a president who will be running for a third term. Mark my word.
You have the highest unemployment. You have the highest homelessness.
He doesn't believe in free enterprise, crony capitalism. He is wrecking this country, wrecking the economy.
You killed Hollywood. Like, Hollywood doesn't exist anymore.
Rogan's commentary is equal parts disbelief and comedic timing, turning complicated disasters into simple, hilarious bits. And of course, he goes after Newsom's public image. Polished, smooth-speaking, always camera-ready, but in Rogan's version, it's all smoke and mirrors. While Gavin's on TV talking about solutions in progress, Rogan is picturing him tripping over a pothole with a microphone in hand, not even noticing that the pothole has turned into a sinkhole. The contrast is what makes it work. Rogan doesn't just criticize him as a leader, he turns him into a character in a strange reality show called How Not to Run a State. And somehow, that show is set in a place where everyone has a surfboard, a trust fund, and a wildfire evacuation plan that's still in progress. He imagines Newsom in the middle of it all, calmly holding a glass of Pinot Noir, saying, "We're making progress," while fire trucks circle around in confusion, trying to figure out why no one ever read the manual on disaster response. And Rogan's punchline lands every time. California is literally burning, but somehow they're still managing to film reality TV.
Some of the success that they're hanging their hat on is his social media campaign where he talks like Trump.
It's no longer the rule of law. It's increasingly the rule of done.
So he's got a bunch of people from his organization that tweet for him, and they tweet like Trump, and they're saying this has elevated him in the public's eye. That's terrifying.
You've seen it across the board. People are scared to death of this guy.
He's starting to learn the internet sensibility.
It's the appalling silence. It's the complicity. You're seeing the most successful, wealthiest people scared to death of this guy.
Which is heavily trolling, does very well. What he has is a terrible record in California.
Then there's the public reaction. Rogan highlights the gap between official messaging and what people are actually living through. People are stuck in traffic, smoke is in the air, landlords are raising rents, and politicians are pushing out press releases that sound like they were written by AI trained entirely on motivational quotes. Joe Rogan doesn't hold back. He treats it like a comedy sketch that somehow turned into real life, and by the end of it, you're laughing, a little disturbed, and oddly thinking, maybe Joe should run a state, or at least host a podcast about states in crisis. Then there's the chaos of law enforcement, emergency services, and bureaucracy all trying to coordinate in the middle of it. Every jab is sharp. Every exaggeration still somehow hits. But underneath the humor, there's a clear edge to it. The reality of a state struggling to maintain its image while its infrastructure keeps falling apart. And then there's the tech scene. Because California can't exist without acting like a global innovation paradise while everything else overheats. Rogan doesn't miss it. He pictures a Silicon Valley boardroom where the emergency plan is basically tweeting an inspirational quote while servers melt down and engineers quietly question their life choices over oat milk lattes.
Which means it was preventable. You certainly can prevent them from raging into the tragedy that they became.
Because that was a few months ago. People have short memories. They go, that tweet was fun. He did a post on X that was fun, and it doesn't matter that they let all the criminals out in California.
That was grotesque mismanagement. That could have been prevented. You can't prevent hurricanes, can't prevent floods, but you certainly can try and start reducing the moral hazard that we've allowed to explode, quite honestly.
He's bad. The people go so much further than him.
The dozens of people who've lost their lives, the hundreds of billions of dollars worth of property damage.
That's how bad the Democratic Party is right now.
He pictures Newsom strolling by, politely clapping at every new innovation, like a basic app that tells you when to water your bonsai tree is somehow going to fix a state that's falling apart. The absurdity is almost surreal, but Rogan delivers it like a comedy sniper, one sharp, sarcastic shot after another. And then there's the green energy push. Solar panels on every roof, electric cars flying past potholes big enough to swallow a small sedan, and a power grid that somehow behaves like a drunk toddler trying to solve a Rubik's Cube. Rogan leans into the irony with precision. So sustainable that you can't even charge your phone while evacuating from a wildfire. Nice work. Of course, it's California, the place that's both paradise and disaster at the same time. Rogan frames it like a twisted game show. Contestants are paying outrageous rent for tiny apartments with paper-thin walls, while luxury high-rises sit empty, just waiting for a billionaire to post an Instagram photo of the minimalist kitchen. He even mocks the idea that laws alone can fix it, as if passing legislation is some kind of magic trick. And somewhere in the background, Newsom is waving a pen like a wand, hoping it somehow conjures affordable housing out of thin air.
It's like, I'm very big on California, very bullish on California. California has all this industry. Hey, fucko. They're all thinking about moving. The only reason why they don't move is because it's too difficult to move. If it was like every business could instantly pull up roots and replace everything and have everything running in a week at the other place, they'd all be gone.
Rogan's description is so vivid you can almost picture a city full of frustrated citizens holding eviction notices in one hand and kombucha in the other, wondering how things got here. Traffic, of course, is its own masterpiece of chaos. Rogan doesn't even need to exaggerate it. Every freeway becomes a parking lot of honking cars, confused tourists, and stalled commutes, while politicians keep saying, "We'll fix it." And the fixes somehow turn into more bike lanes that lead nowhere, or carpool rules that make less sense than a caffeine-fueled squirrel trying to pass a logic test. His sarcasm turns the whole thing into an epic cartoon. Drivers with wild eyes, drones delivering avocados to rooftops, and somewhere in the background, someone still drafting a press release explaining why traffic is improving. The irony is sharp. Citizens are running sprinklers just to protest water restrictions while politicians give speeches about conservation like it's a TED Talk for plants. Rogan's commentary is so biting it almost feels like a public service announcement disguised as comedy.
It's too expensive. It's too expensive to leave versus what you would save and the regulations that you wouldn't have to go through and all the bullshit with all the permits and all that. What California does is overregulate everything. They get as much government involved as possible, as much tax money out of you as possible, and then they still leave the place a mess. They still have homeless people everywhere. It's still a disaster. It's still a woke shit show of virtue signaling at every level of the government. Still. Like, no course correction at all. They're going further and further into La La Land. And you're like, Jesus Christ, you guys.
And then there's the cultural chaos. California leans into its identity politics like it's second nature. But when things get serious, or the smog gets worse, Rogan highlights the gap between values and reality. Trendy vegan coffee shops sitting right next to streets covered in debris, political rallies happening while evacuation orders are still active, social media activism firing off posts while the power grid struggles to stay online. In Rogan's imagined voice, the message cuts straight through it all. You can't tweet your way out of a wildfire. It's blunt, but that's why it lands. It's funny, a little uncomfortable, and hard to ignore. His critique feels subtle and savage at the same time, like a ninja with a sense of humor. Every policy ends up sounding like it was written by someone more comfortable in a video game lobby than real life, while regular people are left holding the controller, trying to figure out how to stop the chaos. Rogan's commentary keeps exposing that gap between political theater and everyday reality, with a kind of sharp wit that cuts through the noise.
The governor gave this creepy speech where he was talking about speculators coming in and talking about what to do with the land of all these homes that have been burnt down.
We're dealing with a myriad of issues. I was just talking to Josh Green, the governor down in Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in, buying up properties.
While it's still only 6% contained. And he did this little dance like, I've been talking with the governor of Hawaii about what to do. We've got some ideas. A speculator, we're going to have some meetings.
And the like. So we're already working with our legal teams to move those things forward. And we'll be presenting those in a matter of days, not just weeks.
It's so creepy.
Then, of course, Rogan turns to the social unrest. Citizens protesting, firefighters running on empty, and politicians acting like problems are being solved while casually sipping lattes with slogans printed on the cup. Joe imagines Newsom trying to give a motivational speech in front of an angry crowd. People holding signs like, "Where's our water?" and "Potholes eat children." And somehow the whole thing goes viral on TikTok for reasons nobody can explain. The absurdity just keeps stacking, and Rogan's sarcastic narration captures it all, pointing out how surreal every moment has become. And then he circles back to the governor. Newsom might talk, walk, and smile like everything is perfectly under control, but Rogan's take is relentless. Every policy, every press conference, every solution gets pulled apart and thrown into a blender of sarcasm. You can almost picture it. Joe leaning back, coffee in hand, shaking his head while California keeps spiraling in the background. And the final punchline lands clean. Maybe it's time to swap the wine tours for disaster tours.